This is Jansen here for week 3, session 3 of our webinar series on creating tracks in Ableton Live. And if you've been with us for the last couple of weeks, we've been doing acoustic guitar and bass, and this week we're going to be focusing on the electric guitar. And so most of you see this session up here in Ableton. It's a few minutes before 3 p.m. here. People should be logging in here shortly, so as you join, just go ahead and type in maybe where you're from and what you do. As usual, just kind of create some connection here in the window, and we'll get started here in about 2 or 3 minutes. All right, guys, welcome. I see a few of you are coming in here and maybe typing in where you're from, what you do. Good to have you back. And we're just getting it started here with this third session of creating tracks in Ableton Live. And last week we talked a little bit about the bass guitar. We've been kind of tracking the Hillsong track called The Cornerstone, and most of you guys know that song. It's oldie but a goodie. And we're going to look here specifically this week at the electric guitar. And so before we start the electric guitar, there are a few things that I kind of want to cover. Just kind of, we're going to do this every week with making sure that we have like some just kind of review over last week's session. So you see here I have the Ableton session up. And so basically what we have here are 4 tracks listed, and some of you may say, well, where did all this come from? How'd you get this in? And so I just want to run through real quick how to import the click and cues. And so at loopcommunity.com, we have a free what we call a band cue pack that we have. It's a free download in our store. You can go to loopcommunity.com, download that, and just drag and drop it right into your Ableton window browser here. And I have actually a couple of these saved in different places, so I think my closest one is in the drum pack. And all it is just a drum rack that has preset samples that are saved in here. And so we have one with English cues, one with Spanish cues, so you could download those. And so what you would do is just drag it right over into your session here in arrangement view and drop it. And it's going to create a new MIDI track here. And you can rename this whatever you want. So like I would probably rename it cues or something. And if you're anything like me, you have to have everything color coordinated so you know what's what. You can kind of expand this a little bit. And then down here, In the bottom left-hand corner here, you have like the audio effects area. And so here you see the rack, and you can actually hear, when I click on these, the different the preset sounds.
Instrumental.
So we have instrumental,
Outro. Chorus. Bridge.
So the first step when you get this imported is always make sure you save by hitting this little save preset. And it's going to save this inside of where you have your current browser, and so it'll have a name that comes right up, and you can type in whatever you want to save this rack. I've called it LCQ Pack, and you can name it whatever you want. But when you go back and when you save this and go back to Ableton to start a new track or create a new track, you'll always have this set here so that you can enter in your cues and your click. And so what I've done is I know that this song is in 72 BPM because the track lists this here in 72 and in C, in the key of C. And so what I'm going to do is kind of zoom in here a little bit. Always kind of set your time signature here to 1/4. And the reason I do that is because I want Ableton to tell me where every single beat is in 72 beats per minute. I want to see every single beat. If I change this to 4/4, I'm going to get every measure. So from count 1 to count 2, it's going to be one measure, and I get 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 as my beats. So I don't want to do that. I want to be a little more more specific with my beat timing. So I have the first 4 beats here listed, and I'm just going to highlight these first 4 until beat 5. And you can right click and insert a MIDI clip, or if you know these key commands here, you can go and enter those, and it's going to drop a MIDI clip right there. You can actually double click on the color of this MIDI clip, and you're going to get this grid down here that's going to show you your timing. And down here, if we got the little headphone icon on, you can just
double time,
press
solo,
these.
trash
and
can.
Now, the preset that we had for the drum rack is now converted into this nice keyboard that lays out all of the different sounds. So I usually change this for my click to show me the 8th beats, and you can see by these divided lines here, this is 1 beat, 2 beat, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And so at the bottom, you can even expand this. If you see this little icon here, if you hover over the names and click and drag your cursor to the right, it'll expand this a little bit so you can see it. You drag to the left, it'll shrink it. So you can enter in either the way I do it just fast is I just double click, but if you want, you can come up here and actually hit this pencil tool and draw in the notes if you want to do it even faster. And I like to do like a kind of like a 2/8 pattern where I have every other beat is accented. So one beat will be the accent, the other beat will be the non-accent, so that you'd have the offbeat there to kind of keep rhythmically in time. And this is kind of what it sounds like. Yeah, so then we'll count off the intro and go right in. Same thing works for the intro, for the cues. So this is the cues. This is actually click. But if you wanted to do the same thing, I could just duplicate this track, and it's going to take the presets and everything. And all I needed to do is I can come in here and erase these. And if I knew where my intro was, I could draw that right in. So instead of showing me every 8th note, I just want to show the quarter beats here and have one call for each beat. So intro, and then 2, 3, 4. And I can drag this to where the intro actually is. So it's going to count off 4 beats, and then intro, 2, 3, 4, and then the start of the song. And it sounds like this. I'm going to count off.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
Right. Okay, and then the song starts. So these audio files here are the ones that we recorded. I went through and recorded the acoustic after we learned the acoustic, and then I recorded the bass after we learned the bass, and we have the entire song here. We're not going to go through the entire song of Electric, and for sake of time, I also have the click and cues already pre-mapped here, so we don't have to spend a lot of time drawing these in. So I'm going to actually delete these 2 tracks here, the click and the cues, because we already have them preset. And I'm going to collapse the acoustic and the bass. They're just going to be kind of accompaniment tracks today. And what I want to do is talk to you guys about using the electric guitar. So this is kind of something I had to research and kind of find out. A lot of guys do it this way, but they also do it where they record electric guitar live. So they'll have an amp and their pedal board and their electric guitar, everything's plugged in like you would just be playing live. And then you would take a microphone and put it in front of the amp, and that would run, back to the board and get mixed, and that's how you would record it. You could do that if you have the equipment, if you have the room, and you have the know-how to kind of mix all that and know what you're doing. But if you don't, and it's a little bit complicated, you can always use plugins. And so plugins are, and there's hundreds of thousands of these plugins that are all over the internet. You can find them for keys and for drums and for guitars. And so one that I really like to use for this is called Bias Effects. And it's made by a company called Positive Grid. And so when I found this, they actually have a couple different versions. They have a version that you can use for the desktop, which is what we're on now in my MacBook. And they also have a version for the iPad or even your iPhone. And they sell it with like a little interface that plugs right into the headphone jack, and you can put your guitar in there and use it if you only have an iPad or an iPhone. But if you have a computer here and you want to get the desktop version, it works really well, and it's a great plugin to use if you don't have a live amp, to get probably as close to the sound of having a live amp as possible without actually having that live hardware. And so I have over here in this category section of the browser, there is a selection that says plugins. And so if I click on plugins, it's going to bring up audio units that I have, and this is some different plugins that I have. And so we have the VST section here. I have 2 different ones. And so Bias Effects is listed here. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to create a new MIDI track, just like the cues and the click. It's just a preset. It's like a software plugin that's going to allow me to, when I play the guitar, get a certain sound out of the guitar using this software. So I'm going to drag and drop this right into the empty space here in Arrangement View, and it's going to load this new window. Also, you'll notice down here in the audio effects that it listed this instrument rack here, or this effect rather. And so now I have this interface that's running inside of Ableton as a third-party plugin. And so lots of these things I can click and move these dials around, and it almost acts as like you're doing this live, but it's all here in Ableton, and it's just really nice. And the quality that comes out of this, I got to tell you, is pretty impressive. The guys over at Positive Grid have done a great job with creating this plugin and making something that's affordable and easy to use. And you can find this from if you log on to to your internet browser and go to positivegrid.com. It'll pull up there, and you can see the product menu, and you can just choose the different products that they have and read about what they have. They have actual hardware if you want like cabs, or if you want a modeling amp that you can buy. It's a little more expensive, but they also have the software here too. That you can download to your browser and use it. So just check that out, positivegrid.com, and Bias Effects is the name of the software that they use. And so there's another piece of software that goes right in hand in hand. It's called Bias Amp. And so right now I have these amps loaded with the amp here and then the cabinet. And so you can actually, in the other software, choose this amp, turn it around, change out the tubes. You can change the different types of effects that are going on. You can kind of tweak those things and really dial in specifically what you want to get the sound that you're looking for. It also has this tone cloud here, and so you can log into this tone cloud, and a lot of the stuff they have, like for hard rock or metal, classic, stuff like that, and you can choose different types of amps that people are doing, jazz, blues, whatever. And when you get this stuff, you can kind of go through these presets and see what people have already loaded. So like this is a pedal board with a different amps, and you can actually download this, and it will load right in, and as soon as you play, you'll be able to hear what this sounds like. Before you download it, you can hit a preview button and preview it to see what it sounds like. So if I wanted to hear this one, I could just click preview and then start playing and see what it sounds like. You can also search. So if there's a certain amp you wanted, like let's say I wanted to have a Vox AC 30 or something, I would just type that in. And it might not come up. You might have to tweak the settings a little bit and see what else out there. Maybe it's just Vox. And people might have like a Vox AC30 that they've created What's good about Positive Grid is there's a setting in here where you can actually model from a different amp. So if you have like a microphone at home, you can actually put that right up to your amplifier and record the sound of your amplifier, and it will be captured by this software. And then you'll never have to use your amp again. You can, because it'll match that tone right in the software, and then you can play back that exact tone from your guitar. Really, really good stuff, and it's very close. It uses a lot of frequency-based matching for sounds, and so you have the source audio that's coming from your amp, and then you match that. Sounds really technical, but it's pretty simple. When you watch their videos on how to do it, they show you how to do all this stuff and walk you through all the steps. So this can get as simple or as advanced as you want, but I'm just kind of showing you some of the ins and outs of what this software is so that you guys can know how to browse through it and use it at its full advantage. So let's go back to the home here and go back and talk through what's going on here. Right here we have our little preset window where we can choose different banks that have different types of amps, and they're preset to a certain type of genre or certain type of sound. So if I go clean here, it'll load a certain type of amp path with different effects pedals. And I can go choose another one if I wanted to do a certain artist or a different category. I could do that. So we're just going to go to, I think, favorite or whatever we are, Arsenal, whatever it was, and this just goes back to the beginning. This dual path here sets up two different amps so that you can split the sound and have one amp be one and one amp be another if you wanted two different amps and kind of mix that. But we're just going to focus on a single path here, which means that the one chain, this is my effects chain, is going right into the amp, and here's the effects pedal. So the way this works is this effects pedal affects this sound, which affects this sound, and so on and so forth until we get to the end of the chain. And you can kind of delete these as you want, remove them. We're not going to use a lot of these today, and I'm going to show you kind of my setup and what I use. So this is basically the setup that I have. If you drag these off the line, they kind of power off, or you can just hit the little green button and it'll bring them down. If you drag them back down onto the chain, it's active. You can also set your BPM, which right now is 72. It's going to match, and a lot of times when you bring this in after you've set the BPM, it's going to automatically detect that and know. There are different settings in here where you can change the MIDI controls and set this up to different controllers on your pedal board. I kind of hybrid this and use it also with my pedal board. So my pedal board setup, I have volume pedal, overdrive pedal, reverb, and delay. But I also have these mod effects here. And what you can do is control either the head or the cab. So if I click on any one of these pedals, I can actually adjust what these pedals are doing. If I power them on, I can control what the noise gate pedal is doing. Here's a compressor, a boost pedal, an overdrive, and then finally the amp. It has gain, bass, all the levels that are on. You can move each one of these. Right here, the control panel, if you click on cab, you can actually, and this is actually the mic that I'm recording with right now, which is pretty awesome because they know in this industry what the mics are that's good. So you can choose between two different types of microphones, and you can actually click this and drag it in front of the cab where you want the placement of the mic to be in front of the speaker. And then you can gain it more or up or down if you want. And you can actually click on some of these. It's really customizable. You can just really choose different types of cabs and choose different types of mics and set these up. It even has a tuner, the input-output settings, all kinds of different things. You can set up quick snap buttons to where you can have different presets. So if you want button 1 to be a very loud overdrive and button 2 to be a clean sound, you can set those up as well. So let's jump right in this. I have my guitar is set up, ready to record. And so we're just going to kind of listen to the clean sound of the guitar. I'm just using a Stratocaster. You guys probably, and the beauty of this is you can use whatever you want. There's no like set in stone thing that's going to be the best. If you have a Telecaster or if you have a Gretsch or if you have whatever guitar you want to use, it's totally up to you. And just kind of tweak around and mess around with these settings and get the sound that you want. And before we do this, too, I need to make sure that we rename the track and what this is, so we can do like Electric 1 or something like that. And of course, we're going to change this so that I know these green ones are like the original tracks, and this orange one or red one is the one that I'm recording, or these are already recorded, and I'll record the orange one. Also want to have something I can match it to, right? So I want to have something that I can record to. I like to record when it's kind of matching the tone to something I've already recorded. So I'm going to drag the actual electric guitar track in here, and I'm going to show you what it sounds like, and we're going to try as best as we can to model this according to this electric guitar track. Not going to be perfect. We don't have time to do the whole track, but I'm going to kind of get us started and see. So right now, everything's ready to go, and I'm going to arm this track, this electric one track here, and make sure the auto is turned off so you don't get any feedback. So it's armed and ready to record. I'm going to go up here, and just like the last couple of weeks, we told you about these settings. When you're recording, always have this quantization feature. I usually keep it on 16th note. So when you're recording anything from keys to drums or even guitar or whatever, anything that's really MIDI based, even the audio stuff, it will quantize it. What that means is if you're recording snap to a grid at 72 BPM, it's going to wait until the next downbeat to kind of make sure that everything is ready to go before you change sections or start the song again. And when you're recording, this feature, what it does is if your keys are too fast, or if the guitar is strummed or whatever and you need to line it up, it's going to actually make sure that it's going to snap it to the nearest 16th note where it's in time. A lot of times we think we're playing in time, but we're not. And so with that enabled, if you're recording different types of MIDI or anything in your session and you have it saved, make sure that that is enabled. And you also want to make sure that this overdub feature is turned on. That way when you go back to record, it doesn't delete all the audio that you previously had, and you can just kind of scrub over that and then change, which we'll go over in just a minute, because like every week, I tend to always mess up with the recordings, and somehow, one way or another, I have to go back and re-record. So let's try and see what this clean sound sounds like. We're not going to get the sound coming out of the amp just yet. We won't hear that until we actually record and then play back what it is that we're hearing. So I have all my effects pedals off. The guitars, I'm going to turn up just a little bit now and let you hear it. So this is the sound from my guitar. It's just that plain. I'm using the bridge pickup all the way. So hopefully you guys can hear all that. If it needs to be turned up, I can turn that up a little bit. In the key of C. And so that's the bass sound of what I have, and we're going to kind of change that here. Now, when you're doing this electric track, what's great about Ableton is it has a bunch of great plugins just besides bias that you can drop in here and do some things before we get started. So you have a tuner, which I'm going to throw in here, and I also use kind of this preset here for an EQ. And I use an EQ every week, just about, so I'm dropping in there. And in order to collapse this window, if you just want it out of the way, you can always hit this settings icon here for this plugin, and it'll drop down that box and make it go away. So those are the things I really work with. If you want to throw a compressor on here, you can, but most of that stuff, again, we have a compressor pedal here, so you can really just tweak it there instead of having to throw another Ableton compressor on. And if I'm not going to hit this in because it's going to give you some feedback, but if you do, you can actually hear and test these settings live. So if I hit in and then pluck a note, the tuner will be active, and you'll be able to see that and tune it right from Ableton. Maybe you don't have a tuner on your pedal board and you need to tune your electric, you can do it right here. And then the EQ is going to give me a little bit brighter sound for my highs and bring up my low end just a bit, which is what we want. And I think let's listen to the first little part of the intro here and see what we have for the electric guitar.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Solo out the electric here. Just sounds like some strums, nice clean strums.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, nice easy strums. Cool. So I know, again, this is in C. We've said this the past couple weeks. If you need to record using a chord chart or some type of sheet, you can get those from praisecharts.com or another entity online that gives those to you, and just kind of play through and make sure you have the right chords when you're recording. That's always a good thing to do. So clean strums here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come down. We don't need an overdrive because it's clean. If I have too much drive, it's going to give me some distortion. So we don't need that. I'm going to go back to the head here so we can control, turn the gain down a little bit, and bring the master up just a bit. And we'll see kind of what this sounds like. So let's try it. So this out as well. Cool. All right, here we go.
Intro, 2, 3, 4. Verse, 2, 3, 4.
Now when I'm recording, because of the way the mixer's set up, you're going to get the click and the cues kind of into this track, which when you're recording you won't have, but you'll hear it here. But let's go ahead and solo out this electric and see what this sounds like with the amp.
Verse, 2, 3, 4.
The cues and stuff are probably going to sound a little bit distorted because it's running them through that plug-in. So we can cut these down a little bit and make sure you can kind of hear the guitar. Let's start from the beginning again and redo this recording. Cut the cues on, leave the click off.
Intro, 2, 3, 4. Verse, 2, 3, 4.
Cool. All right, let's listen back, see what we have. There might be a little hum in the electric, and that's just because of the pickup selector that I have on my guitar. I have it in the middle, so you're hearing a single coil, and that just means you're going to get a bit of
Verse,
feedback.
2, 3,
If I turn on
4.
the bridge, it might not have some of that hum there. But it's an overall decent sound for this amp. So what I want to do now is I want to go back through and re-record it again, and I'm going to adjust a couple of things. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either add the effect. If you don't have a pedal board and pedals, you can add the effect in from here. We have different selections of pedals here, so let's do some reverb. And we have different types of reverb: stereo, spring, digital. I'm just going to bring in some digital reverb and put it after my amp here. And there's a reason I do that. Most of the time you'll have it before, but with bias they tell you to put it after, and it gives you a better sound. And so with this reverb here, you can kind of tweak these settings. So they'll have plate, which is a very long, nice sounding reverb, and the more that you go towards 4, it's the reverb decay is going to get shorter and shorter, so it's not going to sound like you're in this big arena. It's going to sound like you're in a small room. You can actually set the length of the delay if it's long, or the reverb if you want it long or short, and then you can have your tone, the high or the low, and then kind of mess around and see the overall effect if you want a lot of reverb in there or not as much overall. And so let's go with like a plate or something and see what this sounds like with turning on the reverb. And so I'm just going to play a little bit of this again and not have the cues. Let's just only hear the electric. And we'll just start it here and try to get along with the grid. Cool, let that ring out a little bit. And let's listen back and see what that little bit of that reverb is. And I'm going to show you something that's pretty cool here in just a second. Cool, so to add a little bit of reverb, I can hear it a little bit. Let's pull this back up. I also forgot to switch that pickup. Cool, I hear a little bit of reverb. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and you can hear it actually decay out. And I'm going to put the time of this up just a little bit and raise the level of the reverb. And let's see what that sounds like again. Nice. You can really boost this if you want. If we cut this off, you can hear the difference. Kind of stereos a little bit. Add some pretty cool sound. It's cool. Let's add a little bit of delay in there as well and see if we can get some cool effects with the delay pedals. These are different types of delay, just like the other one. And so let's use just this regular digital delay. And you want to put your delay before your reverb and right after the amp here in this setting. Normally, again, on your pedal board, you're not going to have an amp. You're just going to have pedals. And so even with the pedals, they tell you delay and then reverb. There's a chain of following this with the worship genre that makes sense, and some of you may know that. So we're going to go to the delay pedal. You can actually sync this to the BPM. So if it knows the BPM is 72, we're going to flip this on, and it'll sync to the BPM with the delay. So you have your delay time. When you scrub this back and forth, it's going to give you the type of note that the pattern of the delay is falling on. So let's do like a quarter note. So there's our quarter note. Feedback is how much it's actually going to give you into the delay, hearing the delay, the overall level here, and the tone. If you want analog or digital, or maybe in the middle, the more digital, you're going to get a lot more delay. That's going to last longer before it fades out. The more analog the signal is, when you have your delay, you're going to hear it for the first probably 2 or 3, and then it's going to die. So you may want to set this a little bit in the middle to kind of hear the delay. So let's cut this up so you can actually hear it. And it may sound really weird, but again, we can dial this in to get the setting we want for the first little bit. So you're going to delete this again and try it again. This is what this is one of the toughest instruments to get right, because it's all about a lot of times tone and not so much the notes that you're playing to get that right sound. So let's try this again and see what this delay gives us. Cool. Play it back. See what we got. Cool. A little bit much. So let's put the delay time to the quarter note and bring back the feedback a little bit. Cool. That sounds right about good. Let's listen to it again. Just a little bit. Cool. It's pretty solid tone there, and just using the built-in. Now, if we put this drive down, the way this plugin works is kind of a hidden feature of how it works is that anything that I adjust here, it's going to adjust live on this audio. So if we drag this drive down and I play it, it's going to give me some drive. So that's not what we want. So in real time, I can drag these effects off and see what it sounds like. So hear it again. String these back in. Cool. So anything in real time that you adjust will adjust the audio that you've recorded. So that's good to note. And also when you're recording, let's say, well, this section I want to have clean, but during the chorus I want to have distorted. What you may need to do is do another track, like electric 2 or something, or this may be like clean electric and this may be like overdrive, or you can say verse, chorus, bridge, and have different tracks and then combine those electrics into one track at the end. That way when the audio is playing one track of each of these, it'll combine them in one track and have different sections. As so when the verse is playing, it'll be this section, and then if you have another track that's the chorus, it's kind of more distorted, and then maybe the bridge is like heavy delay and reverb, and then you'll be able to combine those into one track and play one electric guitar, and that'll be really nice. So that's kind of the mixing phase that comes after. So now that we have this little verse section here, let's come back and or the intro section. I want to get ahead and get to some of the cool stuff that can come here. So let's try and see what this looks like here. What section is this? Kind of the turnaround. And then maybe into the chorus again. No, it goes back into the verse. So that is an iconic hook for Cornerstone. Cool, so you can put a lot of delay and reverb into this section. Let's see if we can mimic what's being played here, first of all. And again, that's just a standard guitar with no effects. I also have effects on my pedal board. Now I can come down here and use these, so what we're going to do here is cut off the delay and the reverb. We're going to leave these, the boost, compression, and gate on. And what I'm going to do is turn on my actual physical pedal board and the pedals that are there. So I'm going to actually engage my delay, and we're going to play around with the delay a little bit and see what that's like. So right now I have... I'm going to get rid of this. Now that I've turned off the pedals and turn on the click to have a tempo here. And I'm going to dial this into my delay pedal. Just a tap tempo. So let's go ahead and play this, and now that we have it, you're going to hear the delay. So that's the actual delay there. So that's a live delay. That has nothing to do with this plugin anymore. This is actually from my pedal board into my recording interface that's plugged into my computer. And that's the delay. So I'm going to cut the delay off, and then I'm going to turn on my reverb. And you're going to hear the reverb. So this is without the reverb. And this is with reverb. You hear it die a little bit. Let's turn the kind of get the decay up a little bit. And let's see what this sounds like. Cool. So there's a little bit of reverb, and if you put the two together with like the delay, and let's see if we can replicate that little part. Cool. So again, you can mix this with a live pedal board, or you can use 100% of the effects in here and not worry about using a live pedal board if that's for you. I will say that going through this and kind of trial and erroring it, if you will, that while these effects are amazing and I still kind of use some of them in my recordings, nothing really beats the sound of the digital and analog pedals that you have on your pedal board. They're going to be more expensive, but you get what you pay for. And so if you have things like Strymon pedals or Eventide pedals or whatever it may be that you're using, I would say that those always will go the long way against using software. But again, as far as using an amp or using some of these modification pedals like boosts, compressors, and gates and stuff like that, you can definitely use these and still get a very good, pretty good quality sound to use in your worship sessions for the weekend or at your church or live or whatever. So let's have some fun and kind of record this next part, the hook, which is that turn around into the verse, and we're going to use that without using these, and we're going to use it live with the delay and effects pedals that I have on my pedal board. So let's try this here. I'm going to turn off the electric, and here we go. And we're going to undo that, and I forgot to turn off the click. And let's just see what this sounds like again. Let's re-record again. Cool. So, see what this sounds like. Might be a little loud. Cool. That's a really cool. And what's cool about this is that I could, just like I said last week with the bass and then the week before with the acoustic, when you're recording these sections and you're setting markers in here, you can repeat these sections by having to rename them. So I'm going to chop this up here, and I know this is the turnaround, so I could actually rename this electric part the turnaround. And then when the verse starts, if I had a verse section, so let's duplicate this and say that this is where the verse starts. I can bring this in and have verse 2. And so what I'm able to do now is extend different copies of this. So if there was another verse that starts here, I could just bring it over. Now you can record each different section like its own thing. So if you recorded verse 1 and verse 2 was sounded something different, you could for sure use that. But maybe those turnaround parts to save you some time instead of having to re-record everything over and over again. If you recorded the turn here, just use the same audio here, and that's totally up to you. Maybe you like doing that, maybe you don't. And that's just a little trick that sometimes I'll use to save myself a lot of time, especially if I'm using a certain guitar part for like some type of riff that's repeated again and again in the song. So let's re-engage the electric here and get to the part, I think it's during the bridge. Let's see where the bridge is at here.
Chorus 2, interlude 2, 3, 4.
So now we have a little bit of a distortion. So let's bring this back in and get some distortion here and see what some of that distortion sounds like. So I'm going to cut my reverb and delay pedals off of my pedal board, and I'm going to turn on the drive. Now different drives some are great for some genres of music and some are great for others. So if you double tap this drive pedal, it's going to bring up the effects menu and you can choose the drive and choose your different types of drive. I like using this clone drive here, and it's modeled after that Klon pedal, which is pretty well known. I'm going to turn the gain down a little bit to about 1 and the output down just a bit, and that should be good. And we'll see what this sounds like. Now the interlude is going to sound like this.
Interlude 2, 3, 4. 4.
Cool. So when we get really into distorted stuff here, let's go to the chorus and try to see if we can record this chorus line. That's going to really show off some of this distortion from bias effects and see what the distortion sounds like. So we're going to cut this off and cut off the cues and see if we can't start the chorus and see just what it sounds like. And it might help if my volume pedal was up. Let's try that again. Cool. Now, those weren't the right chords for the chorus, but just to kind of see what it sounds like, let's listen in. A little bit of distortion. Maybe it's too much. And you can control this between the amp and the overdrive pedal. Cool. And what I'm going to do also is maybe you don't like this amp, maybe you want to change amp, and I didn't show this to you earlier. So if you double click the amp, you can bring up a different list of amps here. And these are modeled after real amps. So the 77 Silvertone may be after something, a 59 Tweed may be after like the 59 Fender Tweed. This may be like a 66 AC, maybe a Vox AC30. So like we can try this Vox AC30 and get a different sound. I'm going to turn the gain down a little bit because I think this is a pretty hot amp. And just by changing the amp, we're going to see what this sounds like now with the drive, using this drive. And again, if you cut the drive off, cool. So that's kind of that pattern. If you don't really like that, I also have a drive that is on my pedal board. So let's hit the drive pedal there and see what that sounds like. So you can kind of hear some of this feedback a little bit, and you'll hear it when I strum. I can turn the volume down just a bit. Yeah, a bit more. Alright, cool. So I'm going to re-record this part again, and I'm going to take the drive off and use this boost here, turn the gain down a little bit, and let's see what the analog pedal on my pedal board sounds like as opposed to using the drive pedal in the plugin software. Alright, here we go. Cool, that's probably good. And let's listen back and see what we got. Now here's the thing, when you're using live pedals, there's no way for you to go back and change the parameters. Like if this was recorded here, we could just tweak it live. But since I recorded it with a real pedal, there's no way I can go back and tweak the settings. I'd have to actually delete this and change my pedal settings on my pedal board and then go back and re-record it. So there are some pros and cons to using the live pedal on my pedal board against using this electric guitar. So I kind of like the sound of the live pedal a little better. So I'm going to kind of record this again and turn it up just a bit. And we're going to cut on some Actually, we're going to leave that off. We're just going to record it as is. So let's record it again and boost this a little bit and see what we got. All right, let's listen in. Cool. So it may sound a little bit, it's probably going to sound very tinny to you right here coming through the system. And if you have like a nice set of studio monitors and you're using this, I use it a lot. And so I can attest to, there's a lot more depth of range here in the actual sound that's coming out as opposed to hearing this over a webinar. So again, test this out and see, what it sounds like in your home studio. And you can kind of mix the settings and get more of the lows, less of the mids, and bring the highs up a little bit and give you a little more depth of what this sounds like. If you are doing this too and you have the original or, whatever the original source audio is, if it's something that you re-recorded last week or whatever, and you're recording against that, you can A-B these, in solo one and listen to the other. So if I'm listening to one, this is currently the one I recorded as opposed to this one. Which was also done using this software. And this is before I added any type of effects or anything on it. So again, the difference in sound before and after in your studio mixing this can make a big difference. Okay, so that's the A-being those, and you can kind of solo those out and make some tweaks and kind of, see what you like better. Again, it's all preference whether or not you want to use the software or you want to use a lot of this stuff live, and that's going to make the biggest difference. Let's skip ahead a little bit, I think, to here, and let's see what this sounds like. So this is back to the other part. There is another recording that I do think I have of a different guitar. And so most of these takes will have different guitars. So most songs are going to have 2 or 3 different guitars as opposed to one. So you're going to have to kind of listen to the song and see what's there. So here's another recording. This is the 3rd electric guitar. And I have this from what I recorded as well a while back. So I'm going to drop this in, and this is a different type of sound completely. So if I go over, let's zoom out here a little bit, and go to this, solo this out. Some of you may know this part. It's kind of in the bridge or instrumental. So this is working on the high part of the neck. Cool. So let's try to see if we can find these notes. Again, I'm not the greatest guitar player. Cool. Now, if I cut on my pedals here and do it live, so I'm going to cut on the delay, I'm going to cut on the reverb. So you can really get some cool kind of effects coming with the echo of the delay and the reverb that's coming, and kind of making it sound very ambient and during that bridge to match this tone. I'm going to cut those off now and see if we can't get that same sound out of the electric with just using these. So I'm going to bring the delay in, bring in the reverb, and we're going to record and see what this kind of sounds like. We may need to adjust these after the first recording and see if it's too much reverb, if it's not enough. And let's see if we can get this into this part of the song. Okay, here we go. Alright, let's listen back, see what we got. Cool, and again, you can adjust these live. So if you want to hear more delay, cool, let's listen again. And this is one versus the other, so live versus using the software stuff. You may think that this sounds better and you want to use that, that's totally fine. Cool. So we're able to get some pretty cool sounds. The drive, a little bit, when we did the drive during the chorus, it didn't sound as great as we did previously with this actual guitar part. But when you have it coming either out of a live amp or you have it coming out of a set of studio monitors, it's going to give you a really good sound and a good depth of range, and you can control how much drive is coming from this overdrive pedal or from the pedal inside of bias. So let's talk in the last few minutes. I'm going to kind of put the guitar down a little bit, and we're going to talk through a couple of things on kind of mixing this out and bouncing it. So one of the cool things and important things about electric guitar is when you're recording electric, one of the things that people love to do in the studio is record the electric guitars in stereo. And so, which is what we've just done, and kind of what that means is stereo is just dual channel here. So we have one channel on the left and one channel on the right. The difference is here with stereo, the way we were just recorded it, we had the same signal that's on the left channel is the same source signal that's going to the right channel. The difference between these two channels is nothing. It's the same sound. If we pan the channel over to the right, we would hear the same sound as if we panned it over to the left. And so that's kind of how we did it this way. One of the things you can do is you can come in here to bias, and I was talking about earlier on in the session here at the beginning how you can change this from a single path. Hey guys, we're back. Sorry about that. Hopefully, if you need to just refresh the browser, you can see, and we'll just pick right back up where we were. So, anyways, y'all saw me there, and welcome to the wonderful world of webinars, right? So, going back straight into this, we picked off, we have two different channels that you can use, two different amps instead of one. And what's cool about this is that I can come in here to the splitter and kind of choose which channel I want to go to, where the signal is coming, or I can put it into the split. And so you'll see this signal chain highlight when one is highlighted over the other. So it's just going through this. Or if I change the channel to this top one, it's going to go through this tweed. And if I put it to both, it's going to give me both. Now, the sound will diminish a little bit, but you have a mixer here. And you can actually either link these two channels or unlink them and have different levels for each one. So you can actually pan this one to the left channel and pan this one to the right channel. And now you have this line on the left channel is going to be your tweed. And this line on this channel is going to be your Vox. And so you can have two different amps. And what happens is when you record that, it's going to give you a really cool sound and make the guitar even sound more full, because one amp is they're both different types of amps that are having the same audio sending through both. And so a lot of times the studio uses this, either if you hear it on an album or something, if you're listening to Hillsong or whatever, a lot of times they're using this method in their studios to record several different guitar parts, and each guitar part is using, sometimes they're using two different amps to run stereo. And in live stage settings, we've known where they've used 3 or 4 different amps on stage to have the signal be a different sound from each amp and kind of beef up the sound or give a little bit of difference to the sound. So I would, you could do it this way, or what you could do is, if you're not really comfortable doing this or don't like the sound that it produces, you could record, instead of stereo here, you could record in mono. So if you have the one input on your interface, you could set it to 1 here, and you'd have, instead of 2 channels, you just have 1 line of audio. And then your next track down here would be 1 again, and so you would record this one, and then this one would be a different amp that you would choose inside of Bias. And so you'd have 1 track here that's 1 amp, and then another track here that's another, and then you could combine these 2 tracks into one instead of having 2 amps in 1 track, if that makes any sense. And so the Bias will show you kind of how that works and how to do that. I usually typically just record with 1 amp per track, and I'll set this up. Basically, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's get rid of this and duplicate this. So this would be electric 1, and then I just duplicated this track, so all the audio is the same. And I could have this be a tweed, and then this one would be Vox. And so now that I have a Vox on this one, there's a tweed on this one. And I'm going to solo and arm both of these, and when I hit record, it's going to record both of these at the same time. The difference is one audio is going to come through a Vox, and the other audio is going to come through a tweed, and then I can mix those and even pan them. So this Vox will go to the left channel and pan this all the way to the right, and then my tweed will go to the right channel, and you can group these tracks together. So to kind of group these and mix these out here in the last few minutes that we have, you can just kind of put these together and select both and group them, or you can make another track and have this as an input, and then send these tracks to the different one that you want. Like I'm going to send these 2 tracks to the electric channel, and then now it's going to be here, and you'll see them be tracked into the electric. When that's finished, you're going to come up here like we've done in the last 2 webinars, and you're going to kind of mix the audio levels of these, and you're going to export the audio, and you're going to do either all individual tracks, or you can bounce out the track that you want. So we can do like the electric one. Make sure it's wave, 44.1 is fine, 16, no dither, and then you click export, and it's going to let you name the file, save it here, and then you'll have your wave, audio wave file that you've recorded, and you can bounce those out and use those tracks in Worship Live. You can upload them to Loop Community and sell them. You can use them for practice tracks, whatever your heart's desire. And so that's kind of the way that this will work. And that is how I record electric a lot of times. You can hybrid them and use a live amp to record and use Bias and mix them, or you can use one or the other. But this is a great route. Again, look at positivegrid.com, and Bias Effects is their product. I think this software typically runs about $69. but it gives you a ton of pedals and different amps inside the software. And you can use this inside of Ableton Live and just really have a blast recording the electric guitar and kind of tweaking the settings to get the tone you want. If you have any questions about this webinar or anything, you can go to loopcommunity.com or just send us an email to support@loopcommunity.com, and we'll be sure to answer that and help you out with any of the questions regarding the webinar and recording tracks with Ableton Live in electric guitar. So next week, tune in, same time, same place. We'll send you the link, and pass this along to your friends if they need some help recording or have questions about Ableton Live. Let them know they can register on our Eventbrite page and get signed up, and we'll do the courses for these. If you sign up and haven't watched the acoustic or bass webinar, we can get you that link, and we'll just make sure you're registered in the system, and we'll go from there. So guys, have a great week this week, and we'll see you next Monday. And I believe it's either going to be the keys / pads / synthesizer, or whatever you want to call it, and then we'll also do the drums depending on what the date is. I believe it's the keys and stuff, or the drums next weekend, I'm sorry, and the keys are last. But just check that out on our Eventbrite page, and email us if you have any questions. Thanks guys so much for coming in, and we'll see you next week.